I'll get that information. I know one thing they did do was drop the minimum and maximum. That's a good thing. We were stuck with that last year.
That's right.
Almost every municipality was stuck with a surplus of salt. And they were going to charge for storing it because we didn't have enough capacity. They eliminated that requirement, so that was a good thing. Because everybody has to like pretty stock. I'll get back to you with the action plans.
Thank you, Dean. Request for fire police assistant spectrum of sound band competition. Will you take that off?
Yeah, it was taken off because we contacted the fire police and they said there's no way they would have enough manpower to do that. I mean, the council wants to give them a blanket approval, they can in case someone is available. However, the indication from the fire police captain was they wouldn't have the manpower to do that.
All right. Any questions regarding that, council? Any input? No. All right. Public utility committee meeting. Superintendent's report is in front of us. Is there any questions regarding that? Hearing none, we'll move right along. Planning and zoning committee, Steve.
Everyone has a copy of the code enforcement officer's report. Any questions about that? Hearing none, there is no other business.
Thank you, Steve. Park and Rec, flow in.
Yes, we have a number of requests. We have a number of requests. The first one being a request for from Bedminster Township for their strides for Mission 5 police. And they're looking for assistance from the fire police, and that event will take place on the 13th of October. So we will have to have an approval tonight from Borough Council on that. If anybody would like to
Entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve a request from Bedminster Township for fire police assistance for their Strides for Mission 5K race on October 13, 2012.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And, yes, the next event is the National MS Society Walk, MS 2013, and that is to take place on April 21st, 2013, in Glenview Park from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if it's okay with council, we will get that on the next meeting agenda for approval. Any questions about that? And we have a request for permission to hold Perkasie Fire Company Carnival. And that date is
June 25th through the 29th, 2015. 25th through the 29th. It was in the package the week before.
oh, okay. And if council approves that, then we can hold it off until we put it on the agenda for our next meeting. All right, and then we have this request for an in-ground lawn sprinkler system at Menlo Aquatic Center.
We do maybe have it in the heating of water in the lawn and pool. Obviously, it's a facility we're proud of. People like to sunbathe on grass instead of dry straw when it gets dry in the summer. Park and Rec Director and Public Works Director have been researching in-ground sprinkler systems. Had 3 quotes. One recommended, which I think is the middle one, if I'm not mistaken, Josh, for $6,500 for 65 sprinkler heads. Is one that's recommended. we do a couple things. Number one, it saves some water because when they turn the sprinklers on now before the pool is done for the evening, sometimes they run all night long. This would calibrate and turn on and off probably 2 hours maximum. There's also a sensor in there that if it's raining or something, it will automatically shut them off or not turn them on. So it saves some manpower putting those hoses out every night, and definitely saves some water because again, we're calibrated is not wasted. We do take pride in the grass. There's a lot of sod that's put in there initially when the pool was built, and we're trying to maintain that. The money proposed for this, this was put in the 2013 budget. The money that was anticipated for this is of the remaining approximately $60,000 that was remaining from the initial borrowing for the pool. As some of you know, we've had a certain amount of money set aside. Over the years, we upgraded the bathroom facilities, the tile in there, and do with some money. So there's about $60,000 left. It can't be spent on anything else. So this is where we're proposing to spend that $6,500. We can do it in 2013. The thought put forth by Public Works and Park and Recreation is why not get it done this fall? It's coming out of the same farm money that's sitting there. So if this is approved, we don't need it tonight, it'll be the next meeting, but if it's approved, we probably have that contract to work on yet this fall. And if not, if it gets approved in the 2013 budget, it will be done in the spring. It's probably better to do it in the fall.
Any questions?
You have plenty of time to do it after we vote on the next meeting. There's no requirement. Pressure to do it now.
Yes, sir. I have a question for you. In terms of that $60,000 that's left over that's sitting there, I know we talked about it previously. Was it thought that we could use that to pay back and eliminate a little bit of debt service on that, or is that money we use a prepayment penalty? Or
It's
why
not
is the money
thinking
sit?
that I'm asking Jeremy to put you on the spot with that. I know we've looked into that.
There's not a prepayment penalty, but there are swaps related to it, so it's still going to cost us money to prepay in essence. It's not the same thing, but it's very similar. There are swaps related to the money that we borrow, so those underlying swaps would have to be paid off. I don't know exactly how much that would be,
Can we
but
figure out how much it is compared to what it would save us for the debt service on that? On the $60,000 to the chunk.
I can find out.
Is that money like a rainy day fund, or is it just money that you guys didn't allocate for anything special for the?
Well, the borough at the time of the building of the pool did two borrowings. It was $1.3 million the first time, $2.6 million the second time. When everything was said and done, there was a little bit left over. It was a little over $100,000. Some of that went to upgrade the bathhouse. Over the following 2 years, new bathroom fixtures, tile, and so on. I think we used a little bit for the diamond. It wasn't the diamond, right? That was a repair.
Yeah.
There was one other thing that escapes me for the moment, but for the most part, the money's just sitting there.
Did you say that there's a penalty if we use it for something else?
if we prepay the loan, if we pay it down early, there are swaps related to it that's going to cost us money. So it's very similar to a prepayment penalty. It's not identical, but it's very similar. So I'd have to find out if that's really going to save us money in the long run, because we have to pay the swaps off. So we have to compare the interest that's going to be saved compared to the swap money that's going to have to be paid.
A question was just raised about the diamond break. Other pools are coming up. They need replacement of the diamond break. Is this money available to use for that?
We have to check that too. I think that comes under the category of repair. This is not supposed to be used for repair. It's initial purchases,
New construction.
new construction, renovation of like a bathhouse, something like that. It's not included with the initial. We can check on it, but I'm pretty sure that it's not included. So my comment about the diamond break, that was repaired.
Or some of us were thinking that money could be used for the diamond break, because that's starting to fail the old place. We need to do something about it.
Jim,
Yes.
just quickly, Dan, can we see the other two bids? Did you put them up?
Yes. We have to both terms.
Yes.
One was 96 and the other was 57, I think.
7 something.
Yeah, but
If you could just clear the packet.
yes.
This week, thank you.
Okay, we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting. Is there any other business to come before the Park and Recreation?
You can
Very
event on
much.
Sunday.
Excuse me?
An event on Sunday?
Yes, we do. We have a fall festival at London Park. Looking forward to that. Hopefully, weather will be better this year than last year. And we're going to miss Millie working on the scarecrows, but I'm sure somebody will come up with helping the kids make the scarecrows. And I just wanted to add too, that I'm going to miss Millie too.
Thank you. I think we should do.
Okay, other business? Hearing none, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Norman. Personnel and Policy Committee, Barbara.
I think I have all the evaluations tonight, as you came in, and then I'll be summarizing them and giving them to the president. So, I'm meeting with Dan, so I'm ready to go.
Great. Thank you, Barbara. Finance Committee, Steve.
Thank you, Jim. First thing is the acknowledgement of minimum municipal obligation pension plans 2013. We just have to acknowledge that we received that.
This acknowledgement is required to be submitted to the council by September 30th. It was, I put it on the agenda just to acknowledge it. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. One thing I would call your attention, if you look at the bottom line number, the MMO, there's one for police, 152,219, one for non-uniform, 102,976. That is before state aid is subtracted. So if you subtract the state aid amount we anticipated in the budget, the first one, 115,600, brings that, the borough part of that obligation down to 37,619, and on the non-uniform plan, 62,000 in the state aid brings that down to 40,976. So it's not as high as it would appear, but that's the number it's projected by the actuaries and finance directors.
Okay, so we'll cover that now.
We are, and it's all those monies in the budget. The borough has always fully funded its pension.
Okay, thank you. And next on the agenda is consider lease agreement for Borough Hall space.
Andrea.
Andrea is the rental and the rental title. Rental person.
So we did have a number of parties who were interested in the borough hall space that's currently for rent on the first floor. The other two offers that were sitting on the table have actually taken themselves out of the running for a variety of reasons. So we have one person who is interested in renting it as soon as it's available. We have worked out what we think is a pretty good contract. We wanted to introduce it to council now because it's a pretty big document. And then if there's any tweaks or changes in the next 2 weeks, we would then go over those with council. But it is a pretty good contract for the borough. If you guys remember the last couple of years with the economy, we did have to take a look at some of our rental agreements. So this is actually higher than it has been in the past. There are a few changes. It's another fitness company, and it would be slightly different than the last tenant that was in their curves. They actually are proposing to be open 24 hours a day, which is kind of a different thing for us here at Borough Hall. As most of you are probably aware, the Borough Hall offices are only open from 8 until 4:30, and then all the doors automatically lock, except for that entrance. The Curves facility now has its own separate entrance. So the new tenant would retain that same access. And then, again, passcodes are needed to get into the other doors. So this facility would be open 24 hours a day. They would need to have access into the common areas, which is not in the borough office space. It's just access to all 3 levels with where the bathrooms are at. And what we found out from the potential tenant is that they would install a security system that would, along with any other barriers that would be needed to make sure that the common areas in this building are protected. They are asking to set some of the rent for the next couple of years so that they can be aware. It is a 5-year contract with 2 5-year extensions, so there's a potential of the borough having another long-term tenant in there for 15 years. But but they do want, because they want to invest a significant amount of money in the renovations, they do want to have a solid contract with an idea of where the rent's going to be over that time period locked into the contract. So if anyone has any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Question. Can you cordon off all this, the offices upstairs, there's no door up there, and the office there, and here?
All of these spaces that we consider, obviously the borough owns the entire building, but the area that is used by Perkasie Borough for borough business is actually secured and has a security system. So every night, nobody else in the building has access to any of the borough area, any of the area where the borough offices are at, including the upstairs offices. They can access the elevator. They cannot get into this room. They can't get into that hallway or the room where a majority of our administrative staff is downstairs. The only space that they can get into in the evenings, and that's any of our tenants with the right passcode, is they can come in from either the parking lot door or the 7th Street access to get into the hallways, into the elevator here, so we can keep that handicap access. And then the bathrooms in the common areas they can get into. The rest is secured with an alarm system. That works very well. Most of the staff members can tell you.
Anything else for Andrew? No? Thank you, Andrew.
Does anybody on council have any comments on any other terms of the lease? Okay. It should have been in your packet over the weekend. It had the numbers in it. That's what we would want feedback on, because that's what we're in the middle of negotiations on that, and we wanted to make sure we were in line with what Borough Council was expecting.
What was the lifespan thing?
Their last agreement had them at $2,100 a month.
This is a slight increase.
Yeah.
And Matt had asked for the final document. I know you were going back and forth today with the owner. Is there any change in this document?
Not as of today. Again, like I said a little bit earlier, we are hoping that we're pretty close to the final document, because it's so big. We wanted to give you guys plenty of time to comment on some of the numbers that we were throwing around. He proposed some of these numbers, so and we worked with him a little bit on this. So if council had any feedback for us right now on it, we would definitely like to throw it out there now.
I just want to make sure that I see the other things.
Say it again.
I just want to make sure I see the other things that he may be proposing or negotiating. I think council needs to take a look at that final document, because we can read this one, but I just want to make sure because
I can tell you this is pretty close to being it. This has,
it's great. It's good
yes,
news.
great.
More importantly, I'd like the solicitor, of course, the matter to review it before anything's done.
Yes, and Nate has taken a look at the document and put his stamp on it. Yeah. It would be very minor if we had any other changes.
Okay. So you don't need to go through those things, you're still negotiating?
No, I would just appreciate if you had any feedback to get it to us as quickly as possible.
Great.
They want to get in here as quickly as possible to start renovations, and we would like to continue having the space filled.
Thanks, Andrew.
Is there anything else under other business for the finance committee?
When's our next budget meeting? 20? I thought that went very well, so my hats off to you as well as the staff for a good kickoff to the budget season on Saturday. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for the donuts. Although 3 dozen came in, I'm pretty sure at least 2.5 left. The temptation was there.
Back to you, Jim.
All right, thank you. Economic Development Committee, Barbara.
Okay, we have a tree lighting ceremony that's coming up. We don't have to go to it tonight.
So it's going to be on the agenda.
That'll be on the agenda. Then we have the Economic Development Program presentation at Perkasie Old Town Association and Skate Park. And then, I think that's it. All right, you're up.
Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge some of the Perkasie Old Town Association people that are in the audience. Very much some of the Perkasie
Perkasie Old Town Association people in the audience. You already heard from Jessica D'Angelo here from Shine Yoga. Kathy Warbach is president of Perkasie Old Town. She also owns Perkasie Flowers. We have Hope Fisher from Style Salon. And in the back there, I see Jay Diamond from the Penridge Chamber. And he's been very instrumental in working with us. And who else? Oh, Chris, I'm sorry. Chris Stunk in the back there from Impact Signs, and Bruce Costa from Tsunami Garage. So we have quite a turnout here. I'm going to sit down for this.
This is actually the next step in a process that began about a year ago when representatives of Perkasie Old Town, the Penridge Chamber of Commerce, and Borough Council got together to begin talking about launching an economic development effort. Over the past 12 months, we've met several times as a group to discuss the possibilities. We've met with the Saturn and Telford Main Streets manager and the executive director of Quick Town Live to gain their insights. We also met with and were encouraged to move forward by Bucks County Commissioner Rob Lockery and Planning Commission Executive Director Lynn Bush. Those discussions have led us to three fundamental conclusions. One, now is the right time for an economic development effort. Two, it's essential that a person experienced in economic development lead the effort. And three, it should be a public-private partnership between the business community and the borough. That brings us to tonight's presentation by Mr. Stephen Barth, a consultant to the Main Street Manager Program in Hatboro, Montgomery County for the past 18 months. Steve and I have known each other since the 1980s, and we continue to cross paths for some reason. In fact, we once interviewed for the same job. He got it, but that's another story. Steve reached out to me this summer when he read a story in the paper about our economic development plan discussions. He offered to come up, share his thoughts about what he thought the town might be able to accomplish. I've personally been impressed with his vision and creativity, as have several people who have met Steve. We think he'd be an excellent choice to lead our economic development plan. I'd like him to share with you some of the success he has enjoyed in Hatboro and how similar success could come to Perkasie. Steve?
I don't know if we can turn the lights down. Can everybody see that okay? Or? First of all, I'd like to thank the Honorable Mayor, members of the council. Just get rolling. One of the things, what can economic development do for you? And the things that I'd like to talk about tonight are kind of some of the key benefits. What I would do for you would be a benefit to every person in the borough, every business, every resident, every organization. So some of the things, if you're going to participate in this, is improving the quality of life. Having a vibrant downtown is good for everyone. It's good for business, it's good for the residents, it's good for the kids. Increasing economic development also elevates property values. The more desirable your community is, the more people that want to move here. The more people that want to move here, the higher the property prices go. Attracting new businesses creates jobs, and jobs are great for the borough, and new businesses are great for the borough. They generate fees and permits. They utilize the goods and services that already exist in your community, and the new employees in the community will shop at your stores. And one of the trends that we're seeing in Hatboro is a lot of new businesses. The folks want to live in the community where they're working. I think a successful program will create greater community pride, and then one of the key components would be creating more positive publicity for Perkasie. So I'd like to talk to you about Main Street Hatboro. Now, Main Street is kind of a state designation. When there was actually money in the state coffers, they funded facade improvement grants and all kinds of other improvements for street lamps and other benefits to communities. So I work as a consultant for Main Street Hatboro, and I report to the Main Street Board. The president of Main Street Hatboro is technically my boss, but I report generally to everyone. And on a quarterly basis, I provide about an 8 to 15-page report to council just on what activities occurred and what things are going on. So some of the key things, over the last 18 months, we've opened 76 new businesses that created 404 new jobs. So, you know, just think about it in your town. If you had 76 new businesses here, how would that affect all of you? When I started there, they had, you know, their occupancy rate, about 20% of the stores were vacant in the borough. So especially on Main Street, there were roughly about 40 spots that were vacant. 4 of them were very large acre properties, similar to the size of Borough Hall here. You know, we had a lot of out-of-state property owners, and they were, you know, what you would consider slumlords. So trying to work with the property owners, improving the properties for the benefit of themselves and everybody else in the community. And there was a lot of ongoing negative publicity about the community. So part of what I was doing was, you know, publicizing all these successes. And so we've had hundreds of stories of good news in the borough, which I think everyone has benefited by that. So this was the occupancy rate when we started, and this is where we are today, 97, it's like 97.3% occupancy rate. And it's an evolving process. Over, you know, here's kind of the nuts and bolts. I mean, there were 76 new businesses. We filled 3 of the 4 empty giant anchor stores. We had 18 closures. So that's over the 2-year period, but that's closures. Some of them relocated. There were some banks that were consolidated into offices. Folks retired. And in Hambro, from 1992 to today, there was a 66% turnover on their Main Street. So I don't know if that's common just to Hambro or if that's, you know, all over the country. So we had 58 net new businesses. So it's 400 new jobs. We lost 61, but we have a net plus of 343 new jobs. Some of the types of new businesses, we have 2 large corporations. One's a children's clothing manufacturer. You can see there's a photo here of their warehouse. They first leased 100,000 square feet, and they just leased a couple weeks ago another 50,000 square feet. They're a $200 million a year corporation. One of the other big ones, it's a $125 million corporation that makes computer software for athletic organizations. When they came to the borough, they had 65 employees. They hired an additional 10, and they have 3 new full-time job openings right now. We had 24 new retail businesses, 13 new restaurants, 18 medical-related businesses. That would be chiropractors. We have a medical staffing business. They have 30 employees. We had 7 automotive businesses. One of them that I particularly like restores vintage Corvettes, so that's kind of a fun business to have. We have 5 professional services and 3 manufacturing companies. One of our newest manufacturers, it's a solar energy company, and it's so they've developed a way to capture more of the electricity that's developed through solar panels. They moved in last week, and they've already hired 3 new people. So having new businesses in your town is great. What it's done for our lease rates, and I think your lease rates here, somebody told me were $7, $8 a square foot. So ours through this process have grown to $14 on average this year. And one of the benefits of that is the higher your lease rate, the higher quality of tenants you get. So, you know, if you're going to draw somebody like Talbot's to your town, they want to see that you have a lot of economic activity. Some of the other things that I did, I worked with the governor's office. He has a small team of about 4 or 5 people that work directly with economic development. And so one of those big corporations that came in was looking to purchase a building, get some tax credits and grants. Worked with the governor's office for a couple of months, and we were awarded a $6 million action team award.